Hey, what's up? Netflix has this new Castlevania series out, and it's pretty awesome. The story stays pretty faithful to the video games while adding a lot more substance. While you won't find Trevor Belmont eating any meat he finds in a wall, there is a lot of gratuitous violence, decent animation, and some fun humor thrown in as well. I thought today we would examine these similarities and differences between the Netflix series and the video games.
This is a review show. This is a review show. You don't have to like it, but I hope you like it.
So, starting with the animated show, there's a lot of backstory to Dracula explaining why he's doing the things he does. There was a game on the PS2 called Lament of Innocence, where it's explained how Dracula became Dracula and how the whip every Belmont uses became the Holy Whip, aka the Vampire Killer. The whip is actually infused with the soul of a woman who was to marry Leon Belmont, but started to become a vampire. She sacrificed herself in order to help Leon save the world. How sick is that? Oh, this old thing? It's just a whip infused with the soul of a half vampire made to kick some demon ass. Anyway, the show takes place well after those events. I'm gonna try to keep this fairly spoiler-free and keep the focus on the game so you can enjoy the animated series on your own time. If you haven't played the game this series is based on, which is Castlevania 3, well, you've had since 1990, so at this point, what are you waiting for? In the opening of Castlevania 3, we learn the Belmont family has a long history of fighting evil. The townspeople became afraid of the Belmont's superhuman power and asked them to leave the country. I suppose this is a nice way of putting it. In the more mature animated show, the Belmonts were straight up kicked to the curb by the church and burned out of their home, leaving Trevor as the last son of the Belmont family. Because of this, Trevor is a sloppy drunk, apathetic curmudgeon of a character, which in turn provides a lot of the show's humor and much-needed levity. It's interesting how in the game they say the Belmont family was summoned to battle Dracula's vile forces and in turn show Trevor fighting monsters. And while he does fight monsters on the show, the real monsters are the people who inhabit the town, mainly the church. Forget about the guano-dropping bat who knocks you off the cliff in the game, because the real antagonists here are the bishop and his priests. It's the actions of this church which lead Trevor on a scouting mission to find a missing person. Eventually, he ends up below ground surrounded by statues fighting a cyclops. But with a couple of lashes from the vampire killer whip and a dagger to the eye, Trevor takes down the menace and the statues become the people they once were. This is where we meet Sypha. Now, a lot of people believe Sypha is a man, because in the game, when released from the Cyclops curse, the character asks Trevor if they can join you on your quest. The game then gives you a choice and asks, take him with you? But hardcore gamers who stick with the game find out if you defeat the game using Sypha, then she reveals herself to be a woman. The game even implies Sypha and Trevor get together and carry on the Belmont legacy, if you catch my drift. I mean, Simon Belmont takes on Dracula 100 years from when this game takes place, and he has to be born somehow. I bet that love session was all whips and chains. We learn Sypha is a scholar of magic and can summon the power of flames, ice, and balls of lightning. Who knows? Maybe people mistake Sypha for a dude due to her giant, powerful balls? But I digress. In the Netflix animation, there's a small scene where Trevor calls upon a priest to make some holy water, which is a nice touch and a nod to one of the more iconic weapons in the game series. Speaking of nods to the game, while there is no leg of werewolf to eat, there is a moment where Trevor eats a bit of leg of lamb meat. Also, I'd like to point out another nod to the video game in which, let's just say, there's a lot of gears involved. Also worth noting is the family crest he wears in the show is the same one seen in later games. No, not the toothpaste. They didn't use that in the 1400s. Dracula just has naturally magical white fangs. Speaking of Dracula, let's talk about his son for a minute, the ever-popular Alucard. Considered by some to be the weakest character in the game, Alucard has the power to change into a bat and throw fireballs. Sorry, I ran out of ball wordplay, but I'm sure you can think of some of your own to put here. So, his saving grace is the ability to become a bat and fly over more difficult portions of the game. He doesn't show either of these powers in the TV show, and comes across as way more of a badass than he does in the video game. The show has an act where Trevor mistakes Alucard for Dracula, which is easy to do in the video game as well. The sprite looks and is beaten in a very similar manner to Dracula in the original Castlevania NES platformer. As it turns out, Alucard is testing Trevor to see if he's a worthy companion to join him on a quest to defeat his father from committing genocide against the human race. I guess like a lot of people his age, Alucard has daddy issues. The Netflix series is a bit short and leaves you hanging, which is a good thing in this case. It draws the viewer in slowly and leaves them wanting more. While the Castlevania 3 game is a complete story, it also leaves you wanting more. And Konami sure gave us what we wanted, as the series has been ongoing for years. With over 30 games in the franchise, the Netflix series will have plenty of inspiration to draw from. Maybe we'll even get to see Grant Dynasty next season. Dynasty? Dynasty? Denutsy? Danasty? I don't know. What do you think? Do you enjoy the Castlevania Netflix series? What were the highlights for you? Are you a fan of the games? What's your favorite game? Leave your answers in the comments, and see you soon!